Would 200 of Filecoin's native token called Phil be considered good? Well, even though nothing I say is financial advice, here are my thoughts on it. Now, if let's say maybe Phil went to the price of $50. Now at that point, 200 Phil, again, if that were to happen, would be 10 grand because again, 200 times 50, 10,000. However, some people like to say, who cares about that? Well, to me, I personally wouldn't find that disappointing in my case because if let's say I saved 50% of that and maybe I use that in a make-believe scenario for the next cycle, and let's say for whatever reason during the next cycle, again in a make-believe scenario, that does a 10x, so that 5 grand arguably becomes 50 grand. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, again, like, why would you care about that? Well, even though I know friends out there that are earning like 100 grand a year, 150, 200, whatever, right? Seems like a lot, but then in a lot of cases that I do see, because their expenses are pretty high, like in terms of, consistent traveling, buying this, buying that, right? And also on top of that, expensive car payments, just a bunch of different factors, which I think in some cases, again, that I do see, makes it so that being able to save 50 grand seems not that easy in some cases, arguably. Let alone in a portfolio or something like that, that's a totally different case as well. So to me, I wouldn't find that too, again, disappointing in my case. Again, it's going to be different on a case-by-case basis. I'm not speaking on anyone's behalf, but this is just my mentality. Now, why would Phil maybe at the price of, again, $50, hypothetically not surprise me in an event where maybe it does happen? It's because I like Filecoin's fundamentals. I mean, just to put it quite simply, Filecoin is a project that is focused on decentralizing data storage, primarily speaking. And if we take a look at data storage, I think it's not such a bad thing to be focused on. Sure, it may not have the most hype out there, but if we take a look at the data storage market size, it is predicted to reach nearly $800 billion by 2030, according to Fortune Business Insights. So I don't think it's too bad. Not to mention, we take a look at Filecoin, arguably, it is, I would say, the most popular project out there that we have right now that is heavily focused on decentralizing data storage. Because let's just take a look at it, right? Let's just take a look at some of its close competitors. Of course, again, Filecoin. But then I would say that in no specific order, we take a look at Jasmy, we take a look at Arweave, Filecoin, and as well as Storj. It's actually sometimes pronounced storage because the spelling is like STORJ. But then again, it's going to be different. I guess tomato, whatever the way to say it is. Yeah, besides that point, I think arguably having 4 pretty famous competitors other than Filecoin doesn't mean that it has drastically that many competitors. I mean, if we take a look at NFTs, blockchain gaming, decentralized finance, AI, right? I mean, there's a lot of competitors there. But in this kind of sector, which I think is a little bit more niche, right? It seems a little bit like less popular. I think Filecoin is kind of in this pretty awesome position where it doesn't have that many famous competitors, in my opinion. So I do like it there. And overall, when I take a look at Filecoin, I like the community. I like, kind of the vibe that it has, again, being focused on decentralizing data storage. And also, I think exchange listings when it comes to Phil is pretty good. Now, it's not the best, I would say, but it's still pretty decent nonetheless, in my opinion, arguably. So I do like those factors. And if we take a look at maybe the idea of $50, considering current circulating supply at that point, market cap would be around $34 billion, around a 20x from here. I mean, I get it. Some people may think, oh, around a 20x, who cares about that? No, arguably, I don't think it's going to be the best hypothetical thing of all time. And how can it around a 20x? But then I don't really mind, though, because I am not looking for a microcap. And at the same time, I don't really want to look for Bitcoin or Ethereum either. So I like something like this, something kind of in between. Market cap pretty okay, but not too small, but not too massive either. And this is why, again, I'm still a fan of Filecoin. And if we take a look at, again, $50 market cap considering current circulating supply, around 34 billion. And we've seen like Dogecoin pretty much exceed this by around 50 billion back in 2021. And that was back then, right? I mean, right now we have over 600 million crypto owners. Back then, allegedly, during the peak of the 2021 bull run, around 300 million crypto owners. So that's like a massive difference. I mean, pretty much double. We take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF. Now again, I don't hold any Bitcoin, I don't hold any Ethereum, but I can't deny that arguably it is a pretty positive vibe overall for the space. So to me, if we do ever see a fully fledged type of altcoin season in this cycle, kind of the vibe, if it looked better than let's say back in 2021, wouldn't surprise me. However, historically, altcoins usually, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. Last Bitcoin halving event happened in April of last year, so 18 months on top of that, October this year. It's nothing that is a set date, in my opinion. I mean, it could happen later if it ever does. Like, who knows, November, December, Q1 of next year, whatever the case is. I just want to stay patient because to me, I just want to be prepared for a moment in time in which something does happen as opposed to not be prepared. I'm not telling you to do anything, but this is just what I'm doing personally. So I'm dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting and staying patient. And that's about it. And by the way, if someone's wondering what, brand I'm using for this, it is something called Air. If you see that right there, they have a store in San Francisco and also in New York. So I think that's pretty cool. You know, I'm just using it for fun because I do like, again, the brand. However, it's just a cool thing that I want to mention in case someone is wondering what this is. This is like the day sling, and it's pretty cool. I like it.